Zion Teasley is now charged with stabbing a woman at her Phoenix apartment in 2020. That victim survived. Last year, Maricopa County attorneys charged him with the fatal stabbing of this woman, Lauren Heike. She went hiking on a North Phoenix trail at the time of that incident. Scripps News Phoenix reporter Christine Stanwood has the story on these two similar knife attacks.
All right, I want to put this into perspective for you. This is the location where Lauren Heike was found murdered. It's just south of 64th Street and Mayo Boulevard. But get this, 7 miles south is now where police say Teasley, years earlier, attacked a woman taking out her garbage at her apartment. Newly filed court records from July 29th this year show Zion Teasley is facing new charges, this time from an apparent unprovoked attack in 2020. It's separate from Lauren Heike's murder, but both cases detail eerie similarities. Flashback to January 21st, 2020, and court records detail a woman was taking out her garbage at her apartment complex near 43rd Street in Thunderbird. That's when Teasley allegedly fought his way into her apartment. The victim was stabbed in her face and collarbone. She screamed, fought back, and kicked who police say is Teasley, and she survived the attack. At the time, neighbors witnessed a man who they say ran off and jumped the wall with a long blade, but for years, no arrests. If this sounds familiar, in Heike's murder and in this attack, Teasley allegedly used a knife to stab his female victims. But the 2020 case was closed in July of that year when witnesses couldn't identify Teasley in a photo lineup. However, investigators never showed that photo lineup to the victim. But we're learning police returned to the 2020 witnesses and victim after getting a new lead 19 days after Lauren's murder. The victim positively identifying Teasley June 21st, 2023. According to court records, Teasley was arrested for the 2020 attack 2 days later on June 23rd, 2023. We asked the county attorney why it took so long to press charges. Here's her response.
Some of that would be a question for the police department. What I can tell you is that we received the submittal after we received the submittal on the homicide, and the same attorneys are working on that, and we're able to work with the police to bring this to the charges that you've seen. If you have seen them, it's aggravated assault and burglary.
At this point, Teasley was already in jail for Heike's murder. Teasley admitted he lived near the victim of the 2020 attack, but told investigators, quote, he would never hurt anyone. Christine Stanwood, ABC 15, Arizona.
Why was that photo lineup never shown to that original victim, alleged victim in this case? Joining us now is Douglas McGregor, who is a geographic profiler. And Douglas, before I get you to weigh in on that question about this problematic photo lineup, just tell me your analysis of this crime, these two crimes that are being looked at by police in the case of Zion Teasley.
Sure. And Julia, thank you for having me today. Looking at this case, the offender, or the alleged offender, Zion Teasley, he's attacking in broad daylight, so he's gained confidence. He's likely surveilled this area. He's probably stalking women. In his own words, he's traveled these paths on this trail. He lives near, he works near this area, so he knows the people that use the trail. Those are some things that point towards premeditation, not necessarily of the victim themselves, but of the attack in general. And it's not surprising that this individual has prior attacks. Like I said, he's gained confidence, and he's gained enough confidence to carry out this attack in broad daylight. His previous attack was at night, and it was less violent, and obviously the victim survived. So now he's evolved, he's got more confidence, and he's finally committed to a daylight attack that ends in murder.
How shocked are you that somewhere in this investigation of the 2020 attack, there was no photo lineup provided to the victim, when we see, fast forward to 2023, this victim was able to positively identify him from a photo lineup, which I think is even more surprising that all those years later, a positive ID was able to be made. But tell me your thoughts on how this could have happened in the investigation.
Sure. There may not have been the law enforcement may not have had a viable list of persons of interest or suspects to provide a photo lineup. I'm not sure. I know that the victim from 2020, she did identify this individual from the lineup, but likely it is the case that they just didn't have a viable list of suspects to provide her. And once they had this crime in 2023, they were able to link certain aspects of the crime. And once they had his, we're conducting a cell phone analysis and had his data and his location, they were also able to say, okay, based on his cell phone analysis, his location, where he worked, where he lived, maybe this person committed this crime. And then they were able to show the victim from 2020 a photo that she could identify.
Yeah, who knows how this fell through the cracks. It seems they did have photos to show witnesses who couldn't identify him because, as you mentioned, this was at night, but at least now they do have these connected and they're going forward with both of these charges. Any thoughts about this time gap? Do you think there's a possibility that there are cases that police are still missing that relate to this person, or are these just two incidents that happen where there's nothing in between?
No, I think there's a lot of cases in between. It's hard to say what those cases might entail. He obviously was convicted of a string of robberies. So he has criminal activity outside of aggravated assault and homicide. But there are likely other attacks. And I assume law enforcement is going to look into a number of possibilities. Just looking at location, they're obviously going to look at the greater Maricopa, Phoenix area. They may look as far away as Tucson or Flagstaff. They're obviously going to want to look at Detroit and whether he has an anchor point in Detroit. I know he said a family member had cancer, whether that's true or not, or whether he was just trying to go to Detroit to escape, try and escape the death penalty because the walls were closing in. So spatially, they're going to want to look at those areas, but they're also going to want to look at types of crimes. They're going to want to look at the victim pool, right? They're going to want to look at female victims. They're also going to want to look at victims in the LGBTQ plus community. He did state that, he was confused with his sexual identity and that he wanted to be Lauren. I saw those statements. And if those statements are true, then maybe he has activity, criminal or otherwise, within the LGBTQ plus community as well. So they're just going to want, and then they're going to want to look at motive. And
Douglas,
really
I hate to wrap you, but that is all the time we have for. Thank you for weighing in, especially on behalf of these victims. We hope they all get justice. That's it for opening statements. We have a lot more ahead in the case against Susan Lawrence. Stay with us.